Okay, guys, we're going to do another video from another Canadian content creator. His name is Daniel Fotch. Hopefully, I pronounced that correctly, Daniel. My bad, brother. Um, he covers namely real estate, but looks like he's looking at the economy a little bit now as well with immigration. And I try to focus on Canadian content creator just because I feel like, hey, if you're a Canadian, you you really know what the type of shit's going down in Canada because you're in the trenches with us all. But I also feel like Canadians just need more airtime for having conversations about this stuff, just because the Americans, they run the airwaves. They pretty much run everything. But if we can sort of, prop Canadians up and at least share what they're talking about, hopefully it can reverberate through the population and we can have some meaningful conversations. So if you don't recognize me yet, my name is Alex. I run an AI agency in Toronto called Peak Demand Incorporated, and we're just trying to share the story of the evolving scenario in Canada when it comes to AI, economy, real estate. You can't even put YouTube's on video, or you can't even put videos on YouTube unless you're talking about real estate in Canada if you want to get any traction. So let's get into it.
Its immigration boom. My friend Ben Rabideau said it best here on Twitter, pointing out that the federal budget basically throws the Trudeau government under the bus on the immigration file, commits to reducing temporary residents, and actually targets negative population growth. You can see it dip below zero. You heard that right. Negative population growth. After adding over 3 million people in just 4 years, the federal government is now slamming the brakes on immigration harder than ever before. The Carney government's new budget cuts the number of foreign student visas by half, from 305,000 to around 150,000 next year. And it freezes permanent immigration at 380,000 a year until at least 2028. For a country that's built its entire growth model on newcomers, this is a complete policy reversal. If you look at chart 17 from the budget, it shows basically how population growth went vertical after 2020 during the Trudeau government's sort of labor shortage filling phase. And then it collapsed straight down after policymakers were dealing with a ton of pushback from the public on.
So, like, this is a perfect example. When you see like something in population or economic growth where it's this spiky, where it's spiking up, spiking down, that's called volatility. Volatility is something that you got to really pay attention to, especially if you're trading any sort of stocks or crypto or anything like that. When, especially right now, like literally today, October or November 7th, markets have been extremely volatile, meaning they're going up and down violently. And that's generally not too good for the average investor, not too good to stabilize a nation. So when you see that level of volatility being caused by policy from the government, that's when you sort of have to pay attention. Like the amount of people that we brought in during the pandemic was just by and large way too much. Like we overextended, and that created knock-on effects where housing markets off kilter, job markets completely trashed, and now the government's literally having to hit reverse and get out of this situation by saying, we're not letting any more people in, and if you don't have your shit together, here as an immigrant, you got to go. So, to see something like this in my lifetime, like when I was younger, like immigrants were coming to Canada all the time. My parents were immigrants. If you were an immigrant and you made it to Canada, you were like a well-to-do, like, you were a society contributing person. Like you made it. Like you went through all um, the gauntlets and barriers to get through Canada's immigration system, and you made it. But over the last few years, they sort of like dropped the fences and the walls and the barriers of entry. They said, "Hey, you're not from Canada. Just come on down. We'll get you sorted with some work, cheap work, but at least you'll have work, and you won't have to live in where you're living right now. Come live in Canada. It's great." That sentiment is completely blown up now. Like the government's even saying, "We screwed up. We're turning off the immigration taps. We got to stop because people who live here can't afford their own shit now." So, oh gosh, it's really disappointing to see when a government has to backtrack on its own decisions like this. Because to me, it's just the bottom line is just is it's incompetence. That's the bottom line. When you make such a forward movement in a direction with such confidence, and thinking, hey, this is great for our economy, it's great for business, and then you have to backtrack on that very same thing a few years later, that just goes to show how little planning is involved in these decisions, guys. So we really need to pay attention to what our government is doing. Guys, our government is made up of human beings with their own personal motivations and their own feelings about things, their own sentiments, their own biases. They are going to make mistakes. And those mistakes can have devastating consequences for the Canadians. So we have to pay attention to this stuff, guys. If you see the government starting to increase immigration, increase spending, increase this, increase that, increase, you got to say, guys, we got to stop. It doesn't work. We have to get back to the basis, fundamentals, growing businesses from scratch. Like all this overextension, over leveraging that the government likes to do, especially the government that's been in power the last couple of decades, it's got to stop, guys. We're careening off a financial cliff here in Canada.
This policy. Finance Canada literally projects zero, even potentially negative population growth for the first time in modern history. And now the question is why? And the answer is simple. It's because the system broke. From 2018 to 2024, temporary residents jumped from 3.3% to 7.5% of Canada's population. And this huge surge in non-permanent residents crushed housing supply. It sent rents through the roof. The Bank of Canada even acknowledged this correlation between strong population growth and how it was supporting inflation and rental prices. They were sounding the alarms for the Canadian government far before policymakers ever did anything about it. And Canada's budget even admits this, stating that the pace of arrivals began to exceed Canada's capacity to absorb and support newcomers. But it doesn't end here. CBC also just revealed that Ottawa is seeking mass visa cancellation powers, targeting fraud from India and Bangladesh. Rejection rate just hit a record 74%. 74% of Indian student visa applications in August were rejected, the highest refusal rate globally. So,
Okay, guys, so we have to take that in, and in particularly, like India's been the country in the spotlight for immigration, and God knows how many problems has come of that. I don't want to say anything bad about India. I literally work with people who live in India, work with Indians. Like I have no problem with them, but the amount of fraud that is born from that country is it's astonishing. Like I probably get I don't know, 5 to 15 emails a day that are scams born from whatever operations is happening in India, and you can tell like the way they put their names, the emails, and like it's part of our world. We need to understand that. It's the bottom line. There's a lot of scams that originate from that country. Like even I don't want to say anything bad about their developers because there are a lot of strong developers in the country. So much so where even Amazon and Google imports them. But like even some of their tech tools, like Zoho, for example, Zoho is supposed to be a CRM, like Salesforce. Zoho has been breached for privacy confidentiality so many times that if you're a Zoho user and your customers put information into your system to pay for something, their credit card information now belongs to some scam group in the country. So we really have to pay attention, guys. And for me to see 74% rejection rate from of Indian student visa applications, I'm like, okay, great, we're doing something. Like some people are going to look at me like, hey, this guy's an asshole. Hey, this guy's got mean opinions. The bottom line is, what we just did for the past 5 years broke Canada, guys. And we have to acknowledge that. If we don't acknowledge and admit these things, it's going to be very hard to come out of it. So glad to see that we're having some sort of filter system or strain on all these applications. I'm really glad to see all of those scam schools going down because God knows how many poor families in India were scammed by the schools that ended up just being little holes in the walls and strip malls. Like, I see the kids who suffered from those scams walking around downtown Toronto with no jobs. So we really need to be conscious of this. We need to really, look at the situation for what it is and try and solve it in a meaningful way.
Canada is rejecting more Indian international student applications than any other country as a percentage of the total application. And you had economists warning that temporary migration was powering almost all of Canada's job growth, but it was also contributing to this huge imbalance in the labor pool. And the idea here is that immigration is no longer sacred to Canada's economy. And we can't just pretend that Ottawa and the federal Liberal Party acted alone. I think Doug Ford's government really abused or allowed the abuse of the foreign student loophole, which allows private colleges basically to balloon their international student populations, and it automatically issues them a student visa. Here's the new reality. Canada's economic growth model, the one that we built on population growth to prop up our GDP at the expense of our GDP per capita, that model is dead. Housing demand will cool, GDP will slow, and the immigration miracle that propped up everything from rents to GDP is going to be gone. I would say at this point, it would be unreasonable to not expect a recession as a result of this. Do I think that this is a necessary and a good policy decision? Absolutely. Am I trying to outline to you that there are consequences to this that I think you might want to be aware of? Yes.
I like this guy. Selling
This
his.
season, go tic tac goal and score.
So
I
let's dig into
I
what
I like Daniel because he's telling it like it is, guys. We made some devastating error. We made some devastating errors with some specific countries, and a lot of people from both countries, Canada and India, paid the price for that. And it really saddens me, guys. And this is something that I see more so in the wintertime in Toronto, is all of these Uber delivery, DoorDash guys, Indian guys on their scooters or their bikes or what have you. A lot of them don't have anywhere to sleep. Like, I've seen a couple of them at night curl up into the fetal position under porches when it's raining or when it's snowing. They literally are working without homes, guys, delivering food for like a few dollars an hour. And for them, like, they thought they were going to come to Canada, get their nice college degree, get a great job. Like, all the stories that the recruiters were telling the kids in India about coming to Canada and getting a great opportunity. I see these kids are like getting homeless. They can barely afford like basic food needs in Canada. And in addition to that, and all like the food drives, or like the food centers that are getting inundated by Canadians, and then as well as immigrants coming in there to try and get food. It's like we're creating an environment of poverty. We are literally creating an environment where people can't afford to live meaningful lives. And this is born out of policy, guys. It is. We did too many we immigrated too many we brought in too many immigrants of a particular age group, and that shattered the working economy for young people. And now a lot of them are stuck with no money, or they have like little to no prospects in the country. And a lot of them even just leave. They're just like, this was not what I signed up for. My family's life savings for my education are down the tubes. So I really want us to like sort of clue into this stuff. It's a lot of the times it's not even their fault. Like, they had no idea what they're getting into. It was a recruiter somewhere. It was the government. Like, we have to start to pay attention to this stuff, guys, because it's affecting everyone.
the numbers actually say here. The 2025 budget locks permanent resident as admissions at 380,000, down from Trudeau's 500,000 target. And temporary admissions, so students, temporary foreign workers, and asylum claimants, are going to be halved. And that collapse in inflows is really what you see in chart 17. Population growth plunging from over 3% to near zero by 2026. This is a structural reset on the way that Canada has grown our economy, and very much the way that the real estate market has relied on growth, from rents getting pushed up and from excess demand being present from too many people trying to consume too few homes. Between 21 and 24, population growth accounted for virtually all of Canada's GDP expansion. And without it, I think that Canada is now going to really reveal our true productivity problem. Canada's immigration system was originally built for merit-based entry. This is this kind of slow, selective,
Yeah,
sustainable
yeah.
system.
That's the system that I remember. My mom and my dad had to go through that system. It's a merit-based system. You literally have to have qualifications and merit and achievements and money to get into the country if you were an immigrant. That's why Canada's population was so strong leading up into the early 2000s because everyone here had some sort of merit to be here. And those families, those immigrant families, they met other immigrants, started families, and lo and behold, people like me were born, second generation. So it's important to understand like how the immigration process works and what a burst of young people with no qualifications and no merits is going to do to an economy, especially like just take this in. Immigrant families that immigrated here. Let's just say immigrant family from India immigrates here uh, 15 to 25 years ago. They have kids. They have kids, Indian kids, who grow up, go through the school. Maybe they go to University of Toronto, get their degrees, all that stuff. And the parents who are from India are looking at their kid going, I created a better life for my kid because we came here, we had merits, we had achievements, we came to a better society. We gave our kid an opportunity to have a good education and get a good job. All of a sudden, that kid's degree is worth next to nothing. And the parents are looking at other Indian kids who are coming into the country with no degrees, no merits. A lot of them had fraudulent applications and are competing with their kids for the same jobs. How do you think that those people who had to get here from the merit-based system are feeling watching their kids get pushed out of a job market because everyone's racing to the bottom with wages versus the labor? I mean, I'm glad I'm not really tied to uh, you know a job market, and I can sort of make my way on my own, provide opportunities for other Canadians to make their way on their own. But I'm lucky. I'm lucky because I had parents who you told me like you have to look out for yourself. You have to be the man to look after yourself, look after others, all that stuff. But a lot of people were just told, hey, get a job, get a nice company, work for that company, so on and so forth. And those people are having the biggest problems. They're getting laid off and they're thrown into a pool with all these other people who have no jobs, no experience, and are going after the few crumbs of opportunity that are left. So that's why I have to stress, guys, we need to seriously become more independent, more entrepreneurial, because the circumstances to which we are trying to survive have become nightmarishly difficult. For the people who've immigrated here, God bless you. There, I really do wish you the best, but Canada is about to face a significant downturn. And it would be a safe consideration to say that this might not be the best place in the next 5 to 10 years. You may want to consider going somewhere that is not going to see such a significant drop in the quality of life. Just my 2 cents. To anyone who's not in Canada right now and looking at Canada, you got to pay attention to what Canadians are saying. We're saying the system is broken now. Don't come here. If you want to ignore all that and still listen to your recruiter say all these great things about Canada, all the opportunities, then I can't help you.
And over time, so you used to have this like scoring system where the majority of immigrants came through this CRS economic score, and it determined their viability of succeeding in Canada's economy. And it was a little bit more slow and selective. And over time, it morphed into this volume machine with recruiters, private colleges, labor brokers, a ton of fraud taking place. And the budget admitted that the complexity has grown and efficiency has waned. By 2024, 1 in every 13 people in Canada wasn't a citizen or a permanent resident.
Wow.
And this kind of growth can't coexist without record housing shortages, too much stress on infrastructure, healthcare falling apart, schools getting overloaded. Then you think about things like public transit, general public services, et cetera. So politically, it became very unmanageable, and cutting intake became the only clear lever left when the policymakers realized that there was no way for them to keep up with the system that they broke. And then things got really interesting. The fraud narrative really gave Ottawa cover to mass cancel visas from India and Bangladesh, with student agents under investigation and entire fake college networks being exposed.
Guys, we were literally duped. Canada was duped into into this situation. Like entire fraud, entire networks of colleges that were fraudulent. How does a country let that happen? How does a country let an entire network of fraudulent colleges prey on poor immigrants who are not at all thinking that they have to distrust a Canadian institution of any kind? Like literally, these kids were frauded and came here, and now they're going homeless, and it really makes me sad to think like, wow, these like I'm just thinking to myself, I went to another country, trying my best to start my life, and I was told by all these recruiters, all these people, "Hey, I'll get you a job, we'll get you a place to stay." Da, da, da." Some of these kids are coming here and they're literally paying their employers to work. Like it's part of the arrangement where they have to pay their employer to get work experience in order to have a roadmap towards their permanent residency. Like, what kind of predatory system have we set up here, guys, for immigrants? It's preying on immigrants and it's destroying the fabric of our economy.
And this led to a 74% refusal rate in Indian international students. And this whole scandal had really flipped public opinion almost overnight. Suddenly, even moderate Canadians wanted caps on international students. And if you go back through history, there's always been this pattern that every boom built on cheap labor eventually ends with protectionism and a slowdown.
Yep.
And I think Ontario deserves a bit of a spotlight here. Doug Ford's government leaned on international student revenue to prop up the private college system. Developers and small towns cashed in a lot. Colleges obviously saw like thousands of percent growth in their international students. And now the same regions are facing ghost campuses and empty rentals, and you literally cannot lease a student rental in a lot of these cities. Population growth was very much the lifeblood of Canadian GDP growth. If you remove it, Canada's economic engine stalls. And we really were doing this like to keep GDP propped up at the expense of GDP per capita, because you were adding so many people that our GDP wasn't outgrowing the growth of people. So again, population was growing faster than GDP, which meant that your GDP per capita was falling. And it's basically been falling since the peak of the pandemic, to the point where we were at like the same per capita GDP as we were in 2016, 17.
That's pathetic, guys. Like look at this chart. Even the United States, correction, recovery. Growth, 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 correction, recovery. That's a pandemic correction, guys. And if I'm into charts, I look at charts, I can say technically the US is bullish. We're bullish on the US because the US grows even after a huge sharp correction like that. Amazing volatility, immediate recovery, past the point of the fall and beyond that towards the future. In Canada, we were growing and then started to stagnate, completely collapse. Same thing as the States, and our recovery has been limping. We can't even hit those resistance levels we were at before. We're starting to turn around and say, nope, GDP is going to go right back down to where it belongs. Literally where it belongs, because our GDP has quite literally been propped up. I'm live getting emails from Indian scammers right now, guys. Live, and I just saw like 3 of them come through. Our business is online, directories everywhere, and they use those emails to try and scam businesses. It's we have to get serious about this stuff, guys. And so as a and it's so funny because I know people who've been scammed, who've lost their like businesses, accounts, stuff like that. And it's like if the more bad stuff you know about, sort of the more you can be, defend or you can defend yourself and stuff like that. So when it comes to scammers, digital people, crypto scams, all that stuff, like I personally have been scammed. enough to know that you have to be on the lookout at all times, head on a swivel. Canada, now we're a little bit more aware. Like this whole immigration thing, pumping students in on the cheap labor, it was all a big scam. It scammed the poor students who would literally have no prospects of success in this country, and in general, Canadians who are watching their economic fabric quite literally deteriorate. So the more that we get into this stuff, the more we have to be conscious of it. And the more we have to say to ourselves, you know what? There's a different way to grow the country, guys. Not just throwing cheap bodies and cheap labor into it. We have to do better. Technology.
So we've seen no economic growth on a per person basis in 10 years. For newcomers, this also means slower labor force expansion. The Bank of Canada even observed this. The highest unemployment rates in the country are from newcomers and the youth. So for the first time in a decade, the housing market might face real demand destruction, not just from interest rates, but also from demographics. And Carney's language in the budget, taking back control, sustainable levels, capacity to absorb, this mirrors a lot of that global populist pivot that we're seeing. And very much, I mean, this, along with a lot of the stuff that they're doing on housing, which I'm going to talk about in another video, really, from my perspective, mirrors that sort of move where they're pulling a lot from Poilievre's playbook. So all in all, immigration is about to change massively in Canada's economy. Immigration built modern Canada over the last couple of years, but unchecked, it completely broke the systems that sustained it. And now the pendulum is swinging hard in the other direction. The boom is over. The drawbridge is up, and Canada is about to learn what happens when growth stops and what it actually looks like when we don't have an economy that is growing without this perpetual inflow of more people, more consumers, more workers, more cheap labor. Let me know what you think. I'm curious to get your take in the comments. Do you think that they're going to achieve these numbers? Do you think that they're going to reduce immigration as significantly as they say they are? And if so, what do you think the economic impact is going to be in Canada? As always, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I'll get you another one as soon as I possibly can.
So I like Daniel. I think he's really insightful about, at least in his own arena of real estate, Canada, and the different factors that go into the real estate market, especially immigration. So let me get subscribed to here, Danny. So, oh my gosh, just thinking about this stuff is it's mind blowing. And the more that I cover it, like personally, I feel like I'm doing good by like the few viewers who watch these videos. At least you guys are getting some insight. But I've learned more about what's going on with Canada and our immigration and our economy from YouTube than anywhere else, because you have all these different perspectives from Canadians on the ground floor in different businesses in real estate. I'm the AI guy, saying, "Hey guys, do you want to do AI?" Everyone's like, "Ah, fuck you." But the real estate people, the mortgage people, like they're really sounding the alarm right now, guys. So for me, it's almost like watching Canada's evolution in slow motion, and the growing pains are even slower and just like live. Like we can feel everything. And I really do believe we're going to take a big cut on housing growth, housing prices, a big cut on population. Like our population is going to go down because immigrants are going to be like, I'm not going to Canada. Why would I go to Canada? You go to Canada, you're literally going to be poor and homeless in the winter. I see these kids crawling under stairs and porches in the winter to find what would be a small semblance of shelter and warmth, just so they can wake up a few hours later and deliver some more Ubers that they can't even afford. It is sickeningly bad here, guys. And, when you're a young person, you always think, oh, we're going up. The world's going to be better. The world's going to be a better place. Unfortunately for us, millennials, Gen Zers, young Gen Xers, we're growing up into a world where it's getting worse. And we have to look at, why did this happen? Well, it was the older generations that fucked it up. But they didn't know what they were doing, so can we blame them? It's a very hard situation to be in. Obviously there's some things we can hands down, no problem, 100%. I'm all in. You can blame you can blame the government for their decisions, 100%. Like no problem. I'm a big proponent of being able to criticize the government. They fucked up. big time. Fucked up millions of people's lives. Millions of people's lives. The Canadian government has royally screwed. Probably millions of Canadians' mortgages have been royally screwed by the government. We need to start thinking about this stuff in a meaningful way and having conversations that lead to productivity and results. So I'm gonna leave it at this. It was a half hour. If you like the type of conversations we're having here, feel free to like and subscribe. If you don't like what I'm saying, you disagree with my opinions, hit a dislike, leave a comment. We want all the engagement we can. We're going to do a big roundup at the end of the year to talk about it. But if you have comments or any sort of thoughts on immigration, the economy, write it down. We want to talk about it. We're gonna see what you guys are thinking. But I'm going to continue to cover as much as I can when I got time. Like this guy's probably working his ass off too. Um, but I really think the conversation is important. Thank God I have AI to help me get these YouTube videos up as quickly as possible so I can get back to work. Because I think these YouTube videos are really helping. It's helping us get more notoriety, and it's helping these content creators get seen even more. So I'm really glad to be a part of the community. But I'm looking forward to better days in Canada, guys. We know who to blame. We know who we can blame, but it's important that we are also consciously thinking about um, the solutions that come with these difficulties. Looking forward to the next one. Bye now.